Hi everyone, I'm here to carry on with our Paddington story. I'm so excited. I've been listening to all the teachers so far and they all sound brilliant and the story sounds amazing. So here we go. I'm carrying on from what Miss Miller read yesterday. Secondly, and what was even worse, where it had come off, there was nothing underneath. Oh my goodness, I think Paddington has been going a bit mad with all the paint remover. Only the white canvas. Paddington stood back and surveyed his handiwork. Originally, it had been a painting of a lake with a blue sky and several sailing boats dotted around. But now it looked like a storm at sea. All the boats had gone. The sky was a funny shade of grey, and half the lake had disappeared. What a good thing I found this old box of paints, he thought, as he stood back, holding the end of the brush at paw's length and squinting, as he'd once seen a real artist do. Holding a palette in his left paw, he squeezed some red paint onto it and then splodged it about with the brush. He looked nervously over his shoulder and dabbed some of it onto the canvas. Paddington had found the paints in a cupboard under the stairs, a whole box of them. There were reds and greens and yellows and blues. In fact, there were so many different colours, it was difficult to know which to choose first. He wiped the brush carefully onto his hat and tried another colour and then another. It was all so interesting that he thought he would try a bit of each, and he very soon forgot the fact he was supposed to be painting a picture. In fact, it was more of a design than a picture, with lines and circles and crosses in all different colours. Even Paddington was startled when he finally stepped back to examine it. Of the original picture, there was no trace at all. Rather sadly, he put the tubes of paint back into the box and wrapped the picture in a canvas bag, leaning it against the wall, exactly as he had found it. He decided reluctantly to have another try later on. Painting was fun while it lasted, but it was much more difficult than it looked. He was very silent all through dinner that evening. He was so silent that several times Mrs. Brown asked him how he was, until eventually Paddington asked to be excused and went upstairs. "I do hope he is all right, Henry," she said, after he'd gone. He had hardly touched his dinner, and that's so unlike him, and he seemed to have some funny red spots all over his face. "Crikey," said Jonathan, "red spots? I hope he's given it to me, whatever it is, then I shan't have to go back to school." "Well, he's got green ones as well," said Judy. "I saw some green ones." "Green ones?" Even Mr. Brown looked worried. "I wonder if he's sickening for anything. If they're not gone in the morning, I'll send for the doctor." "He was so looking forward to going to the handicrafts exhibition too," said Mr. Brown. "It'd be a shame if he has to stay in bed." "Do you think you'll win a prize with your painting, Dad?" asked Jonathan. "No one will be more surprised than your father if he does," replied Mrs. Brown. "He's never won a prize yet." "What is it, Daddy?" asked Judy. "Aren't you going to tell us?" "It's meant to be a surprise," said Mr. Brown modestly. "I think it's going to be a bit more of a surprise than he thought. It took me a long time to do. It's painted from memory." Painting was one of Mr. Brown's hobbies, and once a year he entered a picture for a handicrafts exhibition which was held in Kensington, near to where they lived. Several famous people came to judge the pictures, and there were a number of prizes. There were also lots of other competitions, and it was a sore point with Mr. Brown that he had never ever won anything, whereas twice Mrs. Brown had won a prize in the rug making competition. "Anyway," he said, declaring the subject closed, "it's too late now. The man collected it this afternoon, so we shall see what we shall see." The sun was shining the next day, and the exhibition was crowded. Everyone was pleased that Paddington looked so much better. His spots had completely disappeared, and he ate a very large breakfast to make up for missing so much dinner the night before. Only Mrs. Bird had her suspicions when she found Paddington's spots on his towel in the bathroom, but she kept her thoughts to herself. The Browns occupied the middle 5 seats of the front row where the judging was to take place. There was an air of great excitement. It was news to Paddington that Mr. Brown actually painted, and he was looking forward to seeing a picture by someone he knew. On the platform, several important-looking men with beards were bustling about, talking to each other and waving their arms in the air. They appeared to be having a great deal of argument about one painting in particular. "Henry," whispered Mrs. Brown excitedly, "I do believe they're talking about yours. I recognise the canvas bag." Mr. Brown looked puzzled. "It certainly looks like my bag," he said, "but I don't think it can be. All the canvas was stuck to the painting. Didn't you see? Just as if someone had put it inside while it was still wet. I painted mine ages ago." Paddington sat very still and stared straight ahead, hardly daring to move. He had a strange sinking feeling in the bottom of his stomach, as if something awful was about to happen. He began to wish he hadn't washed his spots off this morning, then he could have at least stayed in bed. Judy poked him with her elbow. "What's the matter, Paddington?" she asked. "You look most peculiar. Are you all right?" "I don't feel ill," said Paddington in a small voice, "but I think I'm in trouble again. Oh dear." "Well, keep your paws crossed," said Judy. "This is it." Paddington sat up. One of the men on the platform, the most important looking one with the biggest beard, was speaking. And there, Paddington's knees began to tremble. There, on the platform, on an easel in full view of everyone, was his picture. He was so dazed he only caught scraps of what the man was saying. "Oh, remarkable use of colour. Very unusual. Great imagination. A credit to the artist." And then he almost fell off his seat with surprise. "The winner of the first prize is Mr. Henry Brown of 32 Windsor Gardens." Paddington wasn't the only one who felt surprised. Mr. Brown, who was being helped up onto the platform, looked as if he had just been struck by lightning. But, he stuttered, "there must be some mistake." "Mistake?" said the man with the beard. "Nonsense, my dear sir. Your name's on the back of the canvas. You are Mr. Brown, aren't you? Mr. Henry Brown." Mr. Brown looked at the painting with unbelieving eyes. "Well, it's certainly my name on the back," he said. "It's my writing." He left the sentence unfinished and looked down towards the audience. He had his own ideas on the subject, but it was difficult to catch Paddington's eye. I think he knows Paddington had a role in this. It usually was when you particularly wanted to. "I think," said Mr. Brown, when the applause had died down and he had accepted the cheque for £10 which the man gave him, "proud as I am, I think I would like to donate the prize to a certain home for retired bears in South America." A murmur of surprise went round the assembly, but it passed over Paddington's head, though he would have been very pleased had he known the cause. He was staring hard at the painting, and in particular at the man with the large beard, who was beginning to look hot and bothered. "I think," said Paddington to the world in general, "they might have stood it the right way up. It's not every day a bear wins first prize in a painting competition." Okay, that's my part done for today, and another teacher will be reading you the next chapter on Monday.